Welcome, everybody, to Baumhower's Victory Grill here in Tuscaloosa. So happy to have you along. Alabama and LSU, the build-up has been remarkable. Everybody's talking so much about the president coming to town. But we have Tom Rinaldi with us tonight from ESPN. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Always great to be with you guys. I hear there's a big game coming up.
So they tell me. So, you know, we were just talking during the commercial break. Our engineer-producer, Tom Stipe, has had the pleasure of working the U.S. Open Tennis Championships. I've been blessed to do so many different sports and big events. There's nothing, though, like a big event, wherever it might be. That's why we're lucky enough to be in this business, to cover events such as this.
But with that as a context, can I, at the risk of sounding like a name dropper, mention somebody who I crossed paths with in another sport, who asked me, is there one event that I haven't been to that you think would be special to experience in the other sports that you cover? And I said yes. Alabama, LSU.
There you go.
And the person who asked me was Rory McIlroy.
Really?
Because Rory McIlroy said, we have nothing like this at all in Europe.
That's true.
There really isn't anything collegiate on this scale. Obviously, there's huge professional events, but nothing like this on a collegiate scale. So while we don't expect Rory McIlroy to come, it's his loss. We've certainly given him the tip that this would be a special thing to attend.
You know, and it's very interesting, with all due respect to the Alabama-Tennessee series, the Alabama-Auburn series, in the Nick Saban era, certainly, this has really, in many ways, usurped the top spot on that ladder because of the impact both within the conference and on the national scene.
Well, think about it this way. We're putting together a piece for College Game Day, our colleague Gene Wojciechowski, on games of the century.
Right.
And sitting down with Nick earlier in the week and asking him, when you hear that term, game of the century, what comes to mind? He didn't hesitate for 1 second. He said 9-6 comes to mind. And when I then asked him, what's one thing that sticks out in that game, he looked at me like I had 4 heads and said, we lost. What do you think?
Yeah.
However,
21-0 was the sequel.
Was the revenge, yes. Exactly.
Yeah. But that, you know, there is something, and these two teams are, you know, they have talent. The storylines are galore. Obviously, Alabama dealing with Tua's injury.
Right.
LSU going from 102nd in passing last year to 2nd in America this year. I mean, I don't care what sport, I don't care if it's tiddlywinks on the street. Nobody picks up 100 positions in the standings over the offseason. It's been remarkable.
Having the chance to sit down with Joe Burrow as the coach Saban makes his way here toward the stage, I asked him what was the perception of LSU's offense, and he said Stone Age. I don't think anyone's saying that anymore.
No, not at all. The coach is making his way into Baumhower's Victory Grill as he climbs with a big smile on his face. He's Tom Rinaldi. Coach, good to have you. How are you tonight?
Doing good. Doing really well. Glad to have Tom here with us.
Isn't that the truth? We were just saying how lucky we are. I said, you know, we got the president coming to town, but we've got Tom Rinaldi. The man's good.
He is. I tell you, I have as much respect for this guy in terms of the professionalism that he shows. And, you know, he never disarms you when he's interviewing you. He's got a way to ask things that are pertinent and interesting to other folks, but, you know, never disarms the person he's interviewing, which I really appreciate. And he's become a pretty good friend, and I appreciate that as well.
Can I just, after hearing all those kind words, let you know about a moment we had together maybe a couple of years ago?
Please.
I had the pleasure to play golf with Coach, and let's just say there's a little bit of a talent gap in our 2 games, respectively. You'll figure out where that gap lies in terms of superior to inferior when I tell you this. So I hadn't seen him for several months after we played golf. Came up to me, shook my hand, and said, really good to see you, Tom, and then took 1 large step away from me. And I said, what are you doing? He said, I just wanted to get some distance for the next shank you hit. True or not?
No, it's true.
And that's a lot of the real Nick Saban that we are lucky enough to be able to see.
You mean using the needle? Never.
No,
never.
But the smile on his face and having those moments of byplay. Why don't you jump on in with another question, Tom, since you the man, it's great to have you with us.
Nick, we had a chance to sit down earlier in the week and talk about this matchup, and obviously there's so much that circles around in terms of the attention placed on Tua. But something perhaps that at times we overlook, that I know you appreciate so much about this player, his competitive spirit and how that informs everything else with him and this team.
Well, I think that Tua's attitude about everything that he does is so upbeat and so positive. Always has a smile on his face. If you ask him how he's doing, he's the first person to say, "Thanks for asking." I mean, just an unbelievable magnetic personality. I don't know that there's a player on the team that doesn't have a tremendous like and respect for him, not only as a player, but the kind of person that he is. And I think that speaks volumes of his family and the culture that he comes from, because I think those values are very important to those people. But he's worked really, really hard to try to get back. It's amazing that he's had a really different attitude this time around with the same injury that he had a year ago.
How so?
I think that, you know, you're always a little apprehensive when you do something for the first time. You don't know how you're going to respond. You don't know how quickly it's going to heal. You don't know when you're going to be able to do the next little thing that you'd like to do to be able to get ready to play. But I think this time around, he had a lot more confidence early on because he'd actually been through it once before. So he was more aggressive in rehab, and I just had a lot of confidence that he wasn't going to hurt himself any worse because he had the surgery before and knew that it would hold up for him. So he's really worked hard and done a pretty good job so far.
Tom and I were discussing the remarkable ranking change of the LSU passing game from 102nd in the country to second. What has Joe Brady brought to the table as the passing game coordinator? Is it him? Is it Burrow getting that much better? Where does that combination mesh that they have gone through the roof ranking-wise?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. I really do. I think that the system that they're running is a much more pro-style system, very similar to the New Orleans Saints. It's spread you out. They have very good skill players, which maybe at times in the past, they didn't utilize systematically,
right.
Which now they really do. And Joe was a good player last year, and he's a very, very good player this year because they get a lot of empty, they get a lot of 4 open formations where the defense sort of has to declare itself. He kind of knows where he's going to throw the ball, before it ever happens, so he makes quick decisions, get the ball out of his hand quick. So he doesn't get sacked a lot. He's very athletic, even when you do get pressure on him, and he extends plays. And they've had to have a half a dozen touchdowns in the red area where he extended plays. They had to pattern match the other team. He extends a play and end up throwing for a touchdown when it breaks down after the scramble. So he's a talented guy when it comes to passing and athletically in terms of making plays with his feet. But they have a complete offensive team. They have a really good runner who is a really, really good receiver, very similar to Kamara,
right.
at the Saints. And they have 3 or 4 really good wideouts. Some guys are big, some guys are really quick. So they have a good combination of guys. They have Randy Moss, his son, as a tight end, and he's a very athletic guy. Their offensive line is good. So all around, they have a really talented team. And because they have a new system and a new scheme, I think it's featuring the talent that they have. And all those guys bought into it, and they're doing a good job of executing, and that's why they're having the success that they're having.
Let me follow up a bit, if I could, on the tight end, Thaddeus Moss. He's caught 21 passes, 250 yards. Oftentimes, you can see a tight end get lost in the exchange in many teams. They have trouble keeping tabs on the other guy's tight end. How difficult is that to do? Is that something that they really bank on with LSU?
Well, they've got so many weapons. I think that, number 1 and number 2, jersey number 1 and number 2 are really featured guys with, almost one guy just over 50 catches, the other guy just under 50 catches.
Right.
The running back's very involved in what they do. But you can't forget about the tight end because he's a very capable guy as well. So I'm not saying he gets lost, and I'm not saying that they don't utilize his talents. I think they do. But I think they have so many other weapons that gets featured that maybe sometimes he's not the guy that gets the credit he deserves.
Coach, time for the first phone call of the night, brought to us by Alabama 811. Remember to always contact 811 before you dig to know what's below. Call 811 or online, visit al811.com. Down to Grand Bay, Alabama. Last time you were with us, Tom, this guy was the first call, because every time we're on the air, he is the first caller. Pee-wee, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, sir.
What's going on, Pee-wee? How we doing, buddy?
We're doing great, Coach. Riding out a little bit of rain, getting ready to head up north come tomorrow.
Good.
Coach, I think this game in particular is going to have to be one of the best that's played by our offensive line, to be able to give our quarterback a little bit of time to throw the ball and get a little bit of push to run the ball. But one thing that you have always talked about here lately is the ability to get off the field on third down on defense and tackling and wrapping up instead of trying to just throw the shoulder. Has that been a point of emphasis this week?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, they're going to make us play in space. They're going to make us make plays in space. And I think anytime you play a team like this, it's imperative to do a great job of tackling, breaking on the ball, taking good angles. I get so perturbed with our guys breaking down. Everybody says break down and tackle the guy. If you break down, the theory of relative motion. Why do they build a ramp to get on the interstate? So you can build up speed, right? Mm-hmm. So here you got this really fast guy who's going to shake and bake you in the open field, and you're going to stop. Then why don't they put a stop sign at the end of the ramp?
Yep.
Because you can't get going fast enough to get in, right? So by the time you stop and he starts again, you're done. All right, so you got a long stride, short stride, come under control, open your hips, tackle guys. And I'd rather see guys miss guys that way than break down and stop. And I know a lot of people think I'm crazy, but we've always tried to teach that way, and it's always worked out pretty good. But when you teach that way, you got to get everybody else running to the ball, so if you do miss, there's somebody else to make up for it. But I think tackling will be a big part of this game. I think turnovers will be a big part of this game. I think it's going to be really important for everybody to contribute in whatever they do. Like you talk about the passing game that they have and how the secondary is going to play. Well, how we push the pocket because this quarterback likes to step up, then scramble. How we push the pocket in the middle is important. How we get our hands up, because a lot of their balls come out quick, so that ball is going to be coming out somewhere over top of the rushers. All these little things, sort of add up to having success or not having success relative to what you have to do to be successful against a very explosive team like this.
So we're going to come right back, Coach. We've got visitors here with questions. More from Tom Rinaldi. We're visiting with Tom Rinaldi from ESPN. He is our special media guest here this weekend. How did you get started in this business? Was it because you wanted to be around sports and maybe weren't going to be the competitive athlete? What got you involved?
Well, my competitive DNA is unfortunately pretty limited. But
You and me both, Bubba.
I was a high school teacher and a coach when I first got out of college.
Right.
Did that for a number of years in a few different places. Went back to school, was a general assignment reporter,
Okay.
And then eventually made the turn into sport. Got a great break to work for CNN SI, a defunct network now, and then since 2002 at ESPN.
It's a great story. You obviously do an outstanding job. The coach is back with us, so jump on in, Tom.
Coach, in such a big week with such a big game, and I know how regimented your schedule is and how important process is, but if I were to ask you to prioritize or try to isolate the single most important hour or two you will spend this week, what would it be?
Well, I personally think probably trying to create the time that I spend trying to create the right mindset with our team, which would be the Monday team meeting, and also tomorrow at 3 o'clock when I address the team. I always address the team on Friday. So, the message on Monday was not to focus on the implications of the game. Because that's all people talk about, and that's what you talk about in the media. Well, that's what creates interest. I'm not being cynical or critical. I'm just saying that's the way it is. You do that in all sports. But as a player and a competitor, you know, you want to focus on the things that you need to do to be able to play well so you have the best opportunity to be successful when the game comes. So you can't really do both. You know, you can't be worried about all these external factors, what people are saying, who's predicted, where you're ranked, all that type of stuff, and then really focus on what are the details of what I have to do in the game so that we have a chance to be successful. I don't think you can do both things because you have to be very specific about being able to do your job. You know, general is like, I want to make an interception, I want to get a sack, I want to score a touchdown. But specific is what am I supposed to look at? What's my key? What's my responsibility? Look the ball in my hands. You know, the things that it takes to do all those things. So that's really what you're trying to get the players to focus on, you know, during the course of the week.
That's Monday. How about the Friday messaging? When do you begin to formulate that?
Well, I've started a little bit on it today. I, you know, usually do it on Fridays. And, you know, I usually say something to the team after practice, you know, today. And, you know, basically, everybody wants to win. You know, we want to win. They want to win. Everybody wants to win. All right, so it's not about wanting to win. It is what are you willing to do to be able to win, to be able to have the success that you need to have? What are you willing to give up? You have to give some things up. Like you can't be casual and comfortable all week, all right, and think that this is going to help us play well in the game. You know, you got to be intense, you got to be focused, you got to be relentless in the way you're going to compete in the game. You know, so you got to kind of give that up. All right, second thing is you got to give up some of the social media stuff. You know, you can't be worried about all the external factors. You got to be focused on what you have to do internally to have success on the team. And then your third thing is you got to give up the eye for the we. You know, Michael Jordan had a great quote that somebody sent me this week. It says, talent wins championships, but teamwork and intelligence. No, talent wins games. Teamwork and intelligence wins championships. So that's really what you're trying to, you know, get the players to, you know, stay focused on. And it's not just about what they have to do. And then, you know, you really have to appreciate and not take for granted the opportunity that you have. You know, I mean, hey, we ought to be thankful and have gratitude that we have a chance to play in a game like this that has great national interest against two great teams. That's what great competitors love to do. You know, hell, I'm a kid from West Virginia. I grew up in a coal mining town. I pumped gas until I was a, you know, junior in college at my dad's service station. So I'm grateful to be here, to be the coach at Alabama. And I'm not taking this opportunity for granted. You know, I mean, you know, most of our players, you know, came up in tough times. And they have great opportunities that they had ability to be able to go to college and get an education. And if you're a great competitor, you love to play in great games like this. So, you know, you should be thankful every step of the way that you have an opportunity to do something like this.
Definitely. You know, I've seen so many folks tonight who have come up and said, hey, I'm here from Colorado, I'm here from Minnesota. This gentleman right here to your right, Coach, he's from Alaska and wants to ask you a question. Good evening, sir.
Hello, Coach. When you talk about wanting your team to starting fast and finishing strong, what are some of the characteristics that go into our teams accomplishing those tasks?
Well, I think you got to play one play at a time in the game, and you got to play every play in the game like it has a history and life of its own. So whatever happened on the play before, you got to be able to focus on the next play. And when I talk about being a relentless competitor, that's what you have to do. And you have to be able to live with success, and you have to overcome adversity. I mean, you can't be a great competitor if you can't overcome adversity. I actually talked to one of our players today and about this adversity thing. And you know, it was kind of amazing that I just thought of when we used to interview players at the Combine when I was in the NFL, one of the questions we would ask a player in the interview was, tell me the most difficult thing you had to overcome in your life. And when a player was stumped by that, we were like, I don't know if we want this guy.
Why?
Because if he can't identify something that has been difficult in his life that he has had to overcome, then how is he going to compete in the National Football League in that case? Because things are going to happen. I mean, you're not going to always play perfectly. You're not always going to have success. You're going to throw an interception and they're going to run it back for a touchdown. You're going to get beat for a touchdown if you're playing defensive back. You know, I mean, So you have to be able to overcome adversity. And you have to be able to play smart and stay focused. So you got to have intensity, play with emotion without being emotional. You know, I think golf is one of the greatest games that people can probably relate to and understand, because you have to play one shot at a time. But you have to look at that shot and you have to make a relative decision based on your skill set as to what kind of shot you're going to make. Just like Tin Cup. I mean, he makes a 12 on the hole because he's determined that he's going to hit it over the water 220. If it's me, 220, hitting it over the water, I'm laying up. That's my skill set relative to the choice I have in the game. Well, that's true in football too. You know, you're playing one play at a time. Everybody has to make decisions and choices based on their skill set, whether it's how they run a route, how they decide to catch a ball, whether you're a defensive back and you decide to intercept the ball, swat and hook the guy, or break down and tackle him. That's like, is it a ball or a strike in baseball? I mean, you have to make those athletic intuition type decisions all the time when you're playing. So, and you make those based on your skill set. You know, how fast how can I get the ball? Can I not get the ball? So, to be able to stay focused every play and stay this way during the game. All right, and a lot of people talk about emotion. Emotion wears off. People who are emotional make bad decisions, make bad choices, because you don't really have a good brain when you're emotional, you know, and that's where you get penalties. You know, why is it guy pushes a guy and the guy that hits the guy back is always the guy that gets the penalty?
Yeah.
Because he's making an emotional decision. So we just try to get our guys, and we want them to practice that. We want them to practice it in practice. Play one play at a time, all right, and stay focused and do what you have to do to be successful. And if you don't have success on the last play, what are you going to do to have success on the next play? And just keep grinding. You know, because we always say dominate the competition. You don't dominate the guy on the first play of the game. You don't dominate him on the fifth play of the game. You dominate him the 70th play of the game. All right, so that's what makes a player good, is his ability to sustain a high standard and level of performance, which comes from, you know, having the right mindset.
Thank you, sir, for joining us from Alaska. Coach, the first question is tonight on the Nick Saban Show blog on AL.com. It comes from Adam, who is listening and watching through Facebook and all in Prague in the Czech Republic. And he says, Coach, I'm amazed that Tua even has a chance to play following his surgical procedure. It's remarkable. Is there a recruiting advantage for Bama to have such a strong sports medicine team, the trainers, the doctors, the therapists, and so on? And he writes, Roll Tide.
I don't think there's any question about the fact that having Dr. Andrews, Dr. Kane, that whole group of people in Birmingham, the people that they have for rehab, the rehab center that they have, the working relationship we have with them because they are our team doctors, the quality of people that we're able to attract to our medical staff, probably indirectly because of the relationship that we have with the people in Birmingham, because of their national reputation. I mean, they operate on almost all the NFL players and Major League Baseball players. I mean, so I think it's a tremendous advantage that we have, and I think it's a tremendous advantage for our players. I mean, we have so many players who, you know, people thought, you know, Eddie Lacy's got a bad turf toe. You know, he may never be able to play again. So not do we just have our doctors here, but because they're tied into the NFL, they know every best specialist in the whole country. So the best toe guy's in Colorado, so we send Eddie Lacy to Colorado, and he plays not only for us the next couple of years, he plays 5 or 6 years in the NFL, and probably could have played longer if he didn't have weight problem and all that. So, you know, they extend players' career because of their expertise and the quality of what they do when guys get injured. And injuries are a part of the game. I mean, everybody's going to get injuries. And,
Sure.
And, you know, some of this stuff is cutting-edge technology. Just like this thing that, you know, they did to Tua. But they've been doing it to our players for about 5 years. And most people don't know anything about it. Cam Robinson had it probably 4 or 5 years ago, and he played in 2 weeks. Played left tackle. Got it at Tennessee. We had a bye week. Played LSU at LSU. He played left tackle the whole game. All right, same procedure. So, you know, basically they're just wiring the ligament that holds the two bones in your ankle together coming down your leg. When you get a high ankle sprain, that separates. All right? All they do is tie them together. So the tightrope does exactly what the ligament does. Mm-hmm. And then because they hold the bones together, the ligament can actually heal more quickly. But with the tightrope, the ligament's not even necessary. So as soon as it heals from the surgery and, all that, I mean, the guy can start rehab and start moving around, and they recover very quickly.
In your playing days, a guy'd be out, 6, 8, 10 weeks?
I had it when I played, and I was out for 8 weeks.
Really? Yeah. It's amazing how it's changed. We're coming right back, Coach. We've got to take care of a little business here. Do you make suggestions as to which event you need to cover next, or are you told where you're going?
No, I often say I do 5 or 6 things for ESPN. I'm blessed to be able to be on College Game Day, to do sidelines for some of the bigger games in college football. I do tennis, I do golf, I do about 10 games sideline in the NBA, I do human interest stories, but the 6th one informs all of them. And that's whatever they tell me to do.
Exactly.
I think a lot of folks can relate to that.
Do you enjoy one sport more so than the other?
I love every single sport that's in season, to be honest. Each of them, I absolutely won the lottery. And to echo what Coach said about gratitude.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
I mean, I'm so incredibly grateful for the spot I'm in and the opportunity I have. And I think gratitude is the cornerstone of happiness.
I got a text today, not to drop names, but I will. Kevin Harlan, the great play-by-play man for CBS and Turner. And he said, and we've been friends for years. He goes, I hope you realize how lucky you are. And he goes, and make sure you remember to take a moment to step back and just take it all in on Saturday. He said, this is why we're in this business. And, it doesn't matter what level of this business you're at. That's the prevailing attitude. You got to cradle this job like a rare piece of crystal and don't drop the darn thing. The coach is back after visiting with the fans. Why don't you jump in again, Tom?
Coach, I really appreciated the note you struck about gratitude. But I have to go back to something you said. I feel like I'd be derelict if I didn't follow on one part of your answer earlier, which was so interesting. The question that you would ask of players at the combine and in the NFL in the interview process, which was, what is the most difficult thing that you've gotten through in your life? And so, my question to you.
What a trickster. Yeah.
Doesn't have to be the most difficult, but one answer you would give.
I would think the first thing that comes to mind that was the most difficult thing was, when my dad passed away.
Right.
That's the first thing that comes to mind, even though it was a long, long time ago. I was probably only maybe 22 years old, I think, at the time. And it was just such an abrupt thing. And, I remember the last conversation that I had with him, because this was my first year being a GA. And, I've told this story before. Don James, who was my college coach, and I played baseball in college too. So, in fact, one of my teammates, Mark Ardelli, is here from Kent State when we played baseball together. But I never really wanted to be a coach. And before my senior year, after my senior year and before baseball season started, he called me in and said, I want you to be a GA. And I said, I don't know why I'd be a GA. I don't want to go to graduate school, and I don't want to be a coach. So, add up. Terry and I had just gotten married. We didn't have much, and, I was kind of tired of school. But he talked me into it. And this leads into my dad's story, because, I think all parents really want to know that their kids are going to grow up and be self-fulfilled because they're successful enough or have developed the right values that they can go do something where they have a chance to be successful on their own. And the last conversation I had with my dad, which was like maybe the first or second game of the season that September, when I was a GA for the first time, as I said to him, I said, I really like this. This is what I want to do after just 2 games of being a graduate assistant.
Wow.
And that's the last conversation I ever had with him. So the next Saturday when I tried to call him is the day that, he had his heart attack and nobody knew exactly what had happened and what. But the whole thing of going through that, with my family, with my mother, was really, really difficult being away from home, trying to make a decision. Are you going to go home? Are you going to take care of your family? Are you going to stay where you are and try to develop a career? And to be honest with you, my decision was to go home and run my dad's service station and restaurant and support my mom.
And what did she, this is a big moment, what did she say, Nick?
No way. No way you're coming back here. You go do what you have to do. I'll make it work. I'm not going to let you change your whole life, based on, what's happened here. So that's what I did. And obviously, very thankful to a lot of people who supported me through the years and gave me the opportunities that I got and the lessons that I learned from some very good mentors and people along the way. But if you're talking about one thing that was the most difficult thing to overcome, it was, probably my father's passing.
Great story, though. It's very, very well told. We appreciate that. Coach, on the phone line, we have Jay in Hayden, Alabama. Our next question joining us on the the Academy Sports and Outdoors hotline, I should say. Jay, welcome in, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. Nice to be able to talk to you again, Coach Saban.
Good, Jay.
I want to bounce off of the question of preparation during the week. Watching Coach O and his lead up to his preparation, he's been saying a lot of things that reminds me of Bill Curry in 1989. Alabama was 10-0, ranked number 2, and if they win, they would go to the national title and all. He said that the reason they lost the game was his lead-up to the game. A lot of things during press conferences and all what he was saying.
Well, I think every coach has to do and say what they feel is best.
Right.
As long as you're doing and you're pleased with what you're performing as a head coach, then it's right for you.
And really, I'm sorry, Jay, but I don't have any recollection or any knowledge of, anything that, Coach O has said, this week. I have a lot of respect for, the job that he's done there, the way his team is playing. They're playing very hard, well-disciplined, well-coached on both sides of the ball and special teams. And I don't really pay much attention to, what people do. I'm really kind of so focused on what we're trying to do, take care of our business. I don't really have a whole lot of time to worry about what other people are doing, And I think our players sort of deserve that time and attention that we give them in trying to help them be successful. And we can't control what anybody else does, says, thinks, so it really doesn't matter. We can control what we do, what we say, what we think, how we try to prepare, and that's what we try to stay focused on.
Yeah. Coach, another question from the Nick Saban Show blog on AL.com. Patrick in Hampton, Virginia says, Coach, Christian Barmore is an imposing big guy. He's 6'5", 310. Where have you seen improvement in his play since he's arrived in Tuscaloosa? Thanks, Coach, and Roll Tide.
Well, he is a talented guy. There's no question about that. And he's a very good inside pass rusher, which is something that we really needed on our team, this year. And I think the big challenge for Christian, it was to get confidence in knowing what to do.
Right.
He was a guy that he really wanted to do it. He worked hard. He's a very passionate, emotional guy. And he would make a lot of, just to be honest, he would make a lot of mental errors that, were hard to deal with. And as the season has progressed, and for about the last 3 or 4 games, we've been playing him more and more and all the time in dime when we go to Dime Rabbits. And he's been very productive, but he's also a lot more confident in knowing what to do. And I think every player sort of develops at their own pace relative to being able to go out there and execute and do their job and have confidence. And it really is important that a player has that confidence. And I think that's the importance of preparation. If you prepare well, you're going to go in the game with confidence.
Right.
If you don't prepare well, you can't stay focused. You're not sure what you're supposed to do. There's no way you can go out there and play with confidence. And if there's one thing I sort of didn't like about the way things happened for us this year is we had to play a couple players on defense early in the season before they were ready to play. And I hate doing that. I even tell players in recruiting all the time, they say, well, am I going to be able to play as a freshman? I say, we're going to play you when you're ready to play, and we're going to give you every opportunity to play. But we're actually protecting you if you're not ready to play and you're not confident in what to do and you're not going to go out there and create value for yourself by how you perform. So we're actually protecting you by not playing you. So every player kind of has to understand that there's a developmental process that they have to go through so that they can go out there and perform and play well. And that's what we want for every one of our players. And, in Barmore's case, it just took him a little bit longer, than some of the other guys. But now I think he's a lot more confident. He's been very productive for us.
I'll tell you, it's huge, obviously, whenever a sitting president goes to any sporting event. And for him to come on campus here, it's quite the honor.
Any sitting president who will attend. We were talking a little bit earlier, Josh Maxson and I and Jeff Purinton, trying to recall the last time a president came to a campus to attend a game, and one does not necessarily leap that quickly to mind.
I don't remember. Now, obviously, Bama played in front of John F. Kennedy in the Orange Bowl, and obviously President Trump in Atlanta. Clinton was governor when Alabama played Arkansas in Little Rock. He was not the president at that time. I know you'd have to go back and do the investigation.
A campus visit by a president is rare. I bet Nixon did so famously, but it's rare. Other than obviously and it's still not a campus, Army, Navy.
Yeah, obviously that's played either in Baltimore or Philadelphia over the years. The coach is back. Why don't you jump in with another question, Tom?
Coach, we had the chance to spend a little bit of time earlier in the week, and in the midst of that conversation, I asked you. This was on Wednesday morning. Your reaction to the committee's rankings, the initial rankings this season. Do you remember what your answer was?
Yeah, I didn't know. It kind of caught me off guard.
You had no idea what the rankings were.
Well, I come to work, and start a little after 7, somewhere between 7 and 7:30. And I start meetings at 7:30 in the morning. I don't really ever read the paper in the morning, so I watch the Weather Channel and basically trying to see if we can practice outside or have to go inside or whatever for 15 minutes when I have a cup of coffee. And so I'm not really too, but it really doesn't matter.
That was your point.
The whether I knew or didn't know, I think the most important thing is it really doesn't matter because, if you don't continue to have success in the season, you're not going to be ranked there for long.
Yeah.
All right, so that's got to be the focus, not where you're at right now, all right, but where you want to end up and, how you're going to do the things you need to do to try to end up where you want to end up. And so, that's kind of my thinking on it. And it doesn't really matter right now, but it will matter, later on based on how we finish the season.
Exactly. And Coach, this hour has flown right by. We're about on time for your final word, which is presented each week by Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
Well, we're excited about having the opportunity to play this game. And I tell you, our players have really worked hard, and I think it's really, really important to them that they play well in this game. And I think as fans, I know that you all are concerned about the implications of what this game means and are we going to be able to get in the playoffs and all this kind of stuff. But, really you kind of owe it to the players who have worked hard to create the opportunity, being 8-0, to play an 8-0 team, both in the top 3 teams in the country, however you look at the rankings. All right, so we should be very thankful and have gratitude for what the team has created in terms of supporting the team. All right, in every way, because I promise you, no matter how bad you want to win, those kids, those players on our team, those young men that go out there every day and play, they want to win, and they worked hard to try to do it, and they've made a tremendous amount of sacrifices to be able to do it. And I just would hope, and I know we will have a great stadium and great enthusiasm and great support for our players, and I think that'll go a long way to helping them sustain throughout this game and play the way they need to play to have a chance to be successful.
Amen to that. Coach, as always, thank you for your time, sir. Have a great rest of the week.
All right, thank you. And real thanks to Tom here, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for. What a good friend and what a professional, and I tell you, we should all appreciate that.
I'll try not to shank him anywhere near you, Coach.
That's all right.
There you go. Coach Nick Saban, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Rinaldi, another moment or so with you. What is your schedule like tomorrow? How many shows might you have tomorrow, or is it just putting a wrap on taped pieces? What do you do tomorrow?
We will we'll have some live hits for the different shows. We have Get Up and Sports Center, and we'll continue to put together we have what we think is a compelling piece about Henry Ruggs.
Sure.
A terrific story. It's very much an Alabama-based story. It involves one of his best friends from Montgomery. That's where Henry's from. We hope people will tune in to watch that on game day. But we'll be busy all up and through, up until kick.
You know, it's funny. I spoke to a class today, a broadcast media class, and who was in it but Henry Ruggs. He was there and front and center trying to learn and take a look and decide what maybe the future might be for him. Well, we certainly look forward to having you in town. And again, it's always a pleasure thanking you for your time here on Thursday
Thanks
nights.
so much. I really appreciate you.
Good
Thank
to see
you.
you. Tom Rinaldi, ladies and gentlemen, from ESPN.